At the end of the meeting, Dwight suggested, why don't the two of us begin drafting something to bring in to the group. And so, just between us, I said I would do market capitalism.
Did you put up the map for
Yeah.
managerial and administrative leadership?
I said I would do market capitalism, budgeting, conflict management, and decision making. And Dwight said he would do change processes, strategic planning, human resources, personnel, fiscal, financial funding. Now, we didn't send this out because we didn't have it done literally until yesterday, I guess, or actually Dwight was on the weekend and I didn't get to mine until yesterday. Why don't you take a look at this? And I'm not sure how it would be best to proceed. And there are two possibilities. One, that I distribute this to everybody now, that you take a look at it and sort of study it, and when we come back, comment on it. And that we turn our attention to fleshing out another one of the core components. Then in turn, I would take the information, and because we're not going to draft something here, what we're going to do is generate the ideas, and then I would do a similar kind of thing going forward.
What we did was Roger, you asked us the questions of like, what are the core components of this core component? And we've already mapped it out, but we had some conversations about what would be some of the critical content that we wanted to make sure was captured in some sort of way if we were saying that was a core. So he showed us this map, and when he showed us this map, I circled the things on the map that I thought that if we were going to make sure that this is happening as a core, we need to have something around this. So like change processes are up there, and those other, and 4 other things that are here. And then I just went and I said, because this fits this kind of backwards design model, and my thoughts are, what do we want our students to be able to do, which would be the goal. What would be one way of getting at that goal? What would be an objective? And how would you measure that particular objective with an assessment? And so that's how I sort of attempted. And then on this map is the equity, diversity, and inclusivity, because we said that that's the thread that we want to go through all aspects of the core. And then we had some standards, the administrative standards. We had some standards that were kind of based on what nonprofit leadership looks like. And then we had some standards from Commission of Sports Management and Accreditation. So the thought would be, if we're saying these are the various tracks, then we need to look at the standards of that professional organization and make sure that whatever we're doing are aligned with those standards. And so then, in my part, I tried to identify those standards that I felt went with that particular goal.
Right. And I did that in the example that I gave, but I didn't do it here. And part of what I was thinking was, realistically, I don't know, if we're going to complete this phase of this by June 1st, we never get as much done as I'm anticipating, and it's because we're all working hard at it and taking it seriously. So it occurred to me that maybe what we end up with is a document that gives enough information and insight and direction that reflects our thinking, but doesn't fill in the whole picture. And so we'll whoever gets this, I mean, Gail passes it on to somebody, will see that, you know, if we are recommending this, this is the thinking that we're expecting to be pursued. That is, it has to be connected to the standards and the accreditation. It has to be, you know, defined in terms of broad goals. It has to be defined in terms of specific outcomes that are in the form of objectives, and it has to have a description of the assessment. And we will be giving them, you know, a fairly robust document. I mean, even just from, you know, this part that says, here's how we want this to be developed as it goes forward. So once the tracks are, you know, and some of that's going to relate, I think, to the surveying, the continuing ed does. Once that data comes back, it'll clarify, you know, the realism of pursuing particular tracks, and then at that point, the standards piece becomes relevant in terms of the mapping out. Am I making sense?
Yes, I like the.
Pardon me?
Thank you for doing this.
Well, it actually was Dwight's suggestion, and I said, sure, why don't we try it?
Yeah. I think it's clear, I think you have a ton of information, I think it's set up well for any number of readers.
So what I...
And the thought is we only have one objective, but a goal may have multiple objectives, therefore multiple assessments. But if I was a potential developer, I could take this and craft a syllabus or something around this.
And that's what we want. We want, and then as I'm envisioning this, if we have the recommendation about an advisory group, as whoever's doing the developing develops it out, you know, the advisory group or subgroup within that would be an appropriate place to take it to and say, okay, what do you think of this? How does this fit with the vision?
Because all of the components are developed as a part of this, would there be any advantage of putting like sample core components or something that indicates that this isn't inclusive of everything that's up there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Core components.
Is the goal is to enjoy and sort of bring this in and maybe respond to this the next time?
Do we need some
Right.
thinking time? I mean, to think of,
Yeah,
I feel like I need to.
right.
How do you want us to respond, I guess, is what you're asking.
What do you think, Wade?
Shouldn't we respond before?
I would prefer at the idea level and not at the word level. So you would say stuff like, these goals are broad and I see how these goals fits under this particular core component, or I don't get this goal, those types of things. Like, what do you understand, what do you not understand? Those types of things.
Yeah, I would concur with that. To me, the recommendations, the mission piece and the recommendation piece have to be fairly precise in terms of here's, you know, the direction we want to go. This to me is more, we want to go in that direction, and it's broader in its scope. So if you look at this and say, it looks to me like we're going in that direction, and that's where we're going to go, versus that's the direction we're going in and we don't want to go there. So is what we've crafted here, is it the direction that we have been talking about that makes sense?
You could also look at this through the lens of a neophyte leader and say, I'm taking a course in management and administrative leadership. Are these the critical components that I would like to learn as a leader? And will these goals get me there? As I exit this program, will I have the skill sets, the knowledge base, in order to be an effective manager and administrative leader?
I think that's a great framework. That's what we're doing.
Although there's a dilemma there.
Yeah.